Bord Gáis Energy, putting customers at the core of under-20 and senior hurling championship action. Hashtag hurling to the core.
Hello and welcome to a special live edition of the Troyan podcast for Independent.ie in association with our good sponsors, Bord Gáis Energy. I'm your host, Michael Verney. Thanks to everyone for coming to the Ashdown Park Hotel tonight in Gorey and to everyone who's joining us on Facebook Live. We're here in the sunny southeast as Wexford prepare to face Tip on Sunday in the All-Ireland semi-final, and we're going to preview all the games this weekend with our star-studded cast. We have Billy Byrne, of course, the super sub in '96 and an All-Ireland winner with Wexford back then. We have five-time All-Star winner John Milan. We have Tipperary's Brendan Cummins, who's entering enemy territory tonight. In fairness, he's a brave man. We have four-time All-Ireland winner, four-time All-Star winner Ursula Jacob, obviously from just up the road in Owlert. And we have Colin Keys of the Irish Independent. So our sponsors, Bord Gáis Energy, have kindly given us tickets for the weekend's game, so you can win 3 tickets for Saturday's game and 3 tickets for Sunday's game. So all your best questions, most people have put up their questions already, but if you haven't sent in a question yet, you can do so online on our Facebook feed, or you can just hand the question to Dara, who's at the back of the room there as well. So the best questions will be asked on the night, and you'll win a ticket, so get in the best questions. The best questions will be read out throughout the night. So just to kick things off straight away, Billy, obviously, you were there in '96, dancing at the crossroads, all the great celebrations. It must have brought back great memories a couple of weeks ago, historic Leinster success.
Certainly, and it's great to see it. But before I comment on that, I'd just like to welcome everyone to the home of the Wexford Senior Hurling Champions 2018. So I don't... It's the first time we ever got the chance to say that, but just going back to your question, I mean, days like '96, we didn't see him too often. We certainly haven't seen him for a long time, and I think anyone who comes down the main street of Gorey or driving around Gorey can see what it means to the people of Gorey, and that's expressed all over the county at the minute. So it's a very exciting place at the minute, and it's nice to have it.
Ursula, likewise as well, obviously steeped in hurling heritage in your own family. It must have been unbelievable over the past couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think, Wexford, I'm biased in saying it, but we've definitely the best supporters in Ireland. And look, the county really has rode in behind this bunch of players, and they fully deserve it too. And look, we were really craving that silverware, and it was so vital for Wexford to get that win 4 weeks ago. But the county's on a high, it's all anyone is talking about, and this week is great. The excitement, the buzz around, and we've the minors in the semi-final as well. So hopefully a great day all round.
Just Brendan, of course, I'm delighted there's a bit of space between you and Billy, of course. In the 1997 All-Ireland semi-final, a good friend of mine was telling me earlier on this week, he said when Wexford were down, there was chance of bring on Billy Byrne being echoed in from the terraces. And Brendan, of course, you were only a young fella playing in 1997. What was that like, even as a young fella playing in Croke Park, even against these kind of mad supporters?
Yeah, it was fantastic. Just on Billy there. Billy, you came in, didn't you, in that day? Because I remember Noel Sheehy played in front of me that day, and Noel was an old warhorse. Not saying you were at that stage now, but you were really. And Noel, and I'll pick my language wisely anyway, but according to substitution on the Lochgarman team, Billy Byrne, the whole place went berserk. It was like the Messiah was coming on. And Noel Sheehy came back to you in the square and he says, look on with this, is what he said to me as you were coming in, and this old fella came in along anyway, and the two of them started at it in front of me. So as a young fella, it was an amazing day. It was my first All-Ireland semi-final. The colour, and Ursula's right there, the colour, the excitement. You won the All-Ireland the year before. Us as Tipperary were seen as being the old guard coming to Croke Park, taking on this up-and-coming team, and could they beat one of the traditional counties, we'll call it. Thankfully, on the day, we got a couple of breaks near the finish of the game, and we kind of caught Wexford in a couple of counter-attacks, because they had to go all out, and we ended up pulling away. But certainly the excitement leading up to the game, knowing what we were facing, and the atmosphere in the old Hogan stand, I remember as we walked around in the parade, is something that lived long with me, and frightened to be jazzed on me a small bit, to be honest with you. And the older lads like Noel Sheehy would have been the ones that would help me through it, there's no doubt about that. But the colour that was brought that day was amazing.
Colin, you were writing earlier on this week about I think they're going to blow all the attendances that we've had this year in the GA out of water. This kind of mad Wexford support. It's a different, when Wexford get in a role, it's a little different than any other county.
Well, all they need is a slight window, and if you look at the wider context of Gaelic games and support, Mayo at the moment per capita are incomparable in football. I would always say that all Kildare, if there's any success in Kildare football, they're gone to Cavan as well. Cavan is, there's a latent support there.
We have someone here from Cavan.
We have someone from Cavan. There's dormant support there, ready to go at any stage. But in hurling terms, it's Wexford, and every time they get a sliver of opportunity, the enthusiasm starts. And it's great to be here and great to see a crowd like this to come out and to to listen to our views and to enjoy the night as a build up to the game. And there's always a can-do attitude about Wexford people and Wexford GA people right down through the years, even when things were a little bit more depressed in the last decade or so. There's always that belief that at some stage things can turn. And it is a great attitude to have, and it's not an attitude you get in every other county where there is a can't-do attitude, and they will always see the glass half empty. But in Wexford, it's always half full. I'm delighted that Brendan has such good memories about the 1997 meeting between Wexford and Tipperary, because your memories might have been great about the game 10 years later, I'm sure, the quarter-final. But I'm sure we'll hear more about that later on. So, look, great to be here, and as you say, the enthusiasm, and I always think equate Wexford with the Mayo football team and the Mayo football support.
John, I'd say you're always kind of agreeing with envy, even looking in now, just at Wexford's success just across the border.
Yeah, but in such a short space of time, how the landscape can change, and I suppose that's the beauty about hurling at the present moment of time. The weekend we've 4 teams, 3 new semi-finalists. Limerick were there last year, but now you have Wexford, Tipperary and Kilkenny this year, and that just goes to show you how competitive it is. I mean, 3 years ago we were coming off a win at 2016 under 21 All-Ireland. We were in the All-Ireland final in 2017. And we were above the ladder. We were above Wexford on the ladder, and within such a short space of time now, Wexford have gone above us, and we seem to be down at the bottom of the pack at the moment.
Brendan, there's no point in saying any different. Colin has teed me up for it. So the 2007 All-Ireland quarter-final, which you have good memories of it because you were sitting in the stand, I think, watching it. Can you just draw me back that must have been, without being smart, that must have been very difficult? All fun aside.
Yeah, well, I suppose it was kind of teed up that January when the gear's been handed out and Babs asked me, what size are you in the tracksuit? And I think that kind of, I should have known then that things were going, but it was really difficult. I suppose all along in the championship, you want Tipperary to win no matter what happens, and it doesn't really hit you until your bus pulls up outside Croke Park. And when you sit down in Croke Park, and I had Owen Kelly beside me, I had plenty of company that day now on the bench, and it hit us all. I think it hit Owen before the game really, really hard because we're inside warming up, and as much as subs warm up, I suppose. And Owen turned to me and he said, I'm not playing. And I said, I know, yeah. I said, I'm not playing either. And it kind of dawned on the two of us in the warm-up room at that point. It hit us like that. This is Croke Park. This is where we ply our trade for all the world, and we're not playing. So that moment certainly it hit me. The week of the match, like Damien Fitzhenry was like, he was mega for me, to be honest. He was the guy I was chasing all my life. Every day I trained, it was to be better than Damien Fitzhenry. And the big thing as well on that day for me was I wasn't going to get an opportunity to compete against Damien. Because when he was down the other end of the field, stopping Hayseed, I was saying, I need to do something special here. I don't want people leaving thinking he was better than me. And that rivalry we had, and we met. And I think that's the thing with Wexford too, and it really bore through that day. I met Damien about 2 weeks before the game. Damien rang me, as he would have done all through that, to find you okay, what's going on. He said, look, he said, you're probably not playing. I said, there's no hope of me playing, But he said, we'll meet in the middle of the pitch afterwards and we'll swap jerseys like we always do. And I said, you know what, yeah. And after the game, it was probably one of the most emotional times I had, walking from the dugout to come out and meet Damien, swap the jersey with him. The fact that I wasn't getting an opportunity to stop that rocket he hit in the finish was a little bit of a sickener as well. But to meet him like that, but it just shows that bit of camaraderie, I think, behind the sport as well. And yeah, it sticks a bit all right still to this day that I didn't get an opportunity to play that day, but that's just the way life is and the way sport is. I'd rather think of the next 4 years than that 70 minutes.
Ursula, of course, your brother Rory would have been playing that day, and that's actually the last All-Ireland semi-final that you were in up until this year, so that must have been an unbelievable occasion.
Yeah, look, it was great, and it was always extra special, you know, having a brother involved, and you kind of got to see a greater insight into Wexford and how they were preparing for the game, and they were going in, you know, obviously as underdogs, but you know, they got great confidence from that win and, you know, great memories as well. And it's hard to believe that we haven't been back in a semi-final since. And as John said, each year it can change. You know, Limerick being the only team this year back in the semi-final. It's fierce hard. You know, you see the Leinster Championship this year was just, you know, right down to the wire, and it added to the excitement and to the whole setup for the Leinster final. And then, you know, obviously the Leinster final went our way, but the same from the Munster. You know, you were unsure what three teams. No expert or panelists could actually name the three teams that were going to get through, and that's the best thing about hurling. You know, the unpredictability, and the same at this weekend. You know, anything could happen with the two games.
Just on that column, of course, when Babs left, it of course ushered a new era for Tipperary, and what Liam Sheedy brought was he brought Munster titles and league titles, and then obviously the All-Ireland title as well. Like, that Tip were on the floor at that stage basically, and he basically picked them up off the floor.
Yeah, they were probably coming from a relatively low base given where they were, and you know things had become pretty depressed. But they picked them up very, very quickly, and within 3 years to be All-Ireland champions. But I suppose Brendan will probably articulate this too. It was a big surprise when Liam Sheedy left at that time, and they cited obviously the workload, the 16-hour days on top of their own work as well. But they really got the benefit of a very, very talented group of players that were coming through: Pádraig Maher, Brendan Maher, Seamus Callanan, and I always recall the 2010 under-21 final against Galway and Thurles, and I remember covering that 6 days after the All-Ireland win over Kilkenny in 2010, and being down there, and there was such a crowd there, and Galway did not want to come to Semple Stadium. The GAA were obviously trying to create Semple Stadium as the home of hurling for big finals, and up to this day it probably takes a lot of the finals, league finals under 21, and the crowd that day, and Tipperary won so easily. They pulverised Galway. And I think generally you would have felt coming away that these guys have the whole decade in front of them now. And that they've only won one All-Ireland title since in 2016 is probably a surprise to me, having been there that night when you see the talent of those players. Sheedy leaving had a deflating effect on them. But they're still chasing it now. They've put themselves in a pretty good position again. They have Liam back. C. Kinney recreated. Second coming, it's always difficult to recreate that, but they've put themselves in a good position again.
Just on that, John, you were obviously Munster champions then in 2010 when Sheedy left. What's it like from looking at an opposition team? You must have been licking your lips when you're seeing them going, like, because you're probably thinking the same. You're probably thinking Tipper are going to be around for a long time as well.
Well, 2008, I suppose, roles are reversed. Tipperary were after winning the Munster Championship. They were after won the league as well, didn't you? They were on the kind of a crest of a wave. And we were after coming in off a 2 below par performances against yourselves and Wexford.
There was nothing below par about your performance against me, unfortunately.
But we firmly believed that we had the experience. You know, we kind of had Tipperary's number in around the early mid-noughties. And we felt going into that game that we could... There was one big match in us to take down Tipperary. And Davy came with a plan that day. And I suppose he brought the 2 corner forwards out, myself and Owen McGran. He left Kelly inside, and we got off to a dream start. I think we went 6 points to no score up after 10-15 minutes. And I think it was the winning of the game. I think Tip came with a surge in the second half, and we managed to hold out. And then 2 years later, then roles were reversed. We were Munster champions. Tipper after he got beaten by Cork, was it, in the first round, and we had the 6-week break then waiting for Tipperary. And Tipperary, they just barely got over Galway. Larry got the winning point. But the contrast of 2008 and 2010 is that, Tipperary, you just felt in year 3, they were coming nicely. A bit like Wexford this year, you just feel it's their time now. And I just felt back then, 2010, that they were ready to make the breakthrough. And, they beat us in the semi-final by 6 points. We actually went with the same method of play that we did in 2008. We brought the 2 corner forwards out, and we actually started Brian O'Halloran. He was 19 at the time. We put him in on Paul Curran, and Lightning wasn't going to strike twice. I remember Brendan. I think you went short on a lot of puck outs, was it?
Yeah,
Mickey Cattle, was it? Went to Mickey Cattle, and Mickey Cattle just went long every time. And I think he got 2 goals within a short space of time. And I think Kelly got the 3rd one in the second half. Ball, yeah. And that would be the worry I would have for Wexford going into Sunday's game, is that, Tipperary, they know how to play against the deep lying system, whether it be a sweeper system or you pull out your half forward line. They've come up against Kilkenny over the years. I mean, I was talking to Ursula just before we came on. 2016 Munster final, all the talk going into that match was that Waterford were going to beat Tipperary. And that Tip aren't going to be able to handle the sweeper system. And, that's when I worry about Tipperary, is when they're not being talked up. And they came that day and they absolutely pulverised Waterford. They scored 5 goals and they blew that sweeper system out of the water. So they're well able to play against this sweeper system. And I think Liam Sheedy, he will be after studying Wexford over and over again. I suppose, one key player for Wexford is Kevin Foley. Now, the interesting thing the weekend is, what will happen if Liam Sheedy turns around and he decides to mark Kevin Foley and say, leave Simon Donoghue free. Well, then that's going to ask big questions of Wexford, Yeah.
Billy, there's been some criticism about the system. I suppose the criticism has probably went away given the fact that there was success. But what have you made of it yourself, and do you think it can be effective against Tipperary on Sunday?
I was at that Munster final down that day, and it was definitely Tipperary come out with a conference, and if Tip do the same, and they actually done the same in '97, I think John Lahey had scored 1-2 or 1-3 after about 6 minutes. If Tip come out and take us on like they can, we could be in trouble. In saying that, we have nothing to lose. We've won the Leinster title here that we haven't won for a long, long time. We're in bonus territory. The one thing I will say about if the market, we have a very, very strong fullback in Liam Ryan. He's well able to handle his own, so he doesn't need a sweeper that much. So I think the battle between him and what Seamus Callan does with him, or if they play Seamus Callan, could have a big decision on the. I'd say a lot of people in Wexford going back when David came in first would have questioned the sweeper system. There's no doubt about that. But it's a different system. The sweeper doesn't sit back that often. He has a license to go forward. We see it in the likes of, we say the 2 midfielders go forward a lot. Our wing backs get points. They don't shoot crazy, but if they have a chance, they'll go for it, and they've been very accurate so far. The refereeing probably will have a big bearing on it. To be honest with you, I'm not too sure who the referee is, but in certain terms, I was looking at a match the other night between Tipperary and Cork in under 20, and I would just have to say hats off to the referee. I think he might have given 3 or 4 frees. Like, the game of hurling is a physical, tough game of hurling. There's big talks now about Padraig Maher when he comes out, is he fouling? That's the game of hurling. The problem here is that if Padraig Maher comes out and does it, and someone does it at the other end that's not 6'3" and he's about 5, and he'll free in, that's the consistency that goes with it. But I think the sweeper system definitely suits this Wexford team, but we're not dependent on it. We have very good backs, especially down the middle, and I think the likes of Matthew O'Hanlon as centre back in the last 2 games has really came to the fore where he was back when he was 17, 18, 19 years of age, and he has that freedom, plus he has that monkey. All the players have the monkey off the back of actually winning the Leinster title, and believe it not, the Leinster title does mean something to Wexford.
Definitely, of course. Brendan, you would have had many battles with Davy at the far end of the field. His success rate at management level with different counties is phenomenal, and what he's done with Wexford is fairly unbelievable given the base that they were coming from when he took over.
He does, and I think what he does is he comes in with a very clear way and style of play. You just know the template, you know what it is, you buy into it, and then he starts screaming and roaring at you like a lunatic to enforce it. The thing had always been about Davy, and I think that's why this year I was happiest for him, was that he had the whole thing. He was like Mourinho. He'd win for 3 years, the buzz, it fizzles out. And I thought last year in the quarter-final, it did seem a little bit like it was fizzling out a bit for Wexford. And then this year within, there was a couple of dissenting voices that started to come before they went to Salt Hill. And that day in Salt Hill, I think, was really the day. Davy came down out of the stand. He got put back up to the stand as quick as he was, which I felt was completely out of order at the time by the referee. The Galway public nearly got him put to the stand. But the difference it had is that it showed that he has the players. He has the players 100%, because when Daddy was put back up into the stand, all the kids went, they're doing something against Daddy here now, we need to sort this thing out. And they went for it. And they went after Galway. And after Davis went into the stand, they won by 4 points, and that ended up getting a draw in the game. Now, if that was a team that wasn't committed to the manager or thought that the manager was all about himself, they'd have left it there. And it's noticed after the Leinster final, what does Davy bring? Don't mind your system and your styles with Davy. That's just what he does. What he really does, he gets you a job if you're stuck. He gets you a few bob for college if you're stuck for digs. He makes sure you have enough food. If you have a problem in your family, he'll make sure you talk to the right people to fix it. He fixes every problem to make sure you can play. And in a world where kids and our teenagers are crying out for guidance, they're crying out to get away from iPhones, they're crying out for direction, Davy gives you direction. He gives you belief. He gives you everything the society tells you can't have. He gives you that can-do attitude you spoke about there. And when you build that then, he says to the supporters, we have something to follow. And when you have something to follow, then you have a crowd here, you have flags below in New Ross. It's like a drawbridge coming into New Ross with all the bloody flags. But why is that? Because one man has infused young people with belief. There is nothing you can't do under Davy. There's nothing he can't obstacle, he can't move to make your life better, to make you flourish better, and as a player and as a person. And that, for me, is the key for Davy. Systems this, systems that, grand, we'll all have rows over it. But what he does is, like what I said there, he gives you belief and trusts you. And that is just gold for a player. And that's been his trick for me.
John, you were infused with that energy. Yeah. I think he's building them up to break them down now, I have to say.
No.
But, John, you were obviously infused with that energy in 08, 09 and 10. Like, and I know you had a couple of rows up and down with him. But it...
Chess, I tell you, I didn't get any job, or I didn't get any money, or I didn't get any meals over.
You were born the wrong generation, John.
I don't know who's feeding you that information, Brendan.
It's the modern hurler, John.
There must be more money in Wexford than there now down over. But... going back to Dave, I'd echo everything else he said there, bar the few trades there of getting a job and getting...
He'll be back hurling tomorrow.
No, but I'd echo everything he said there about Davey. He's an incredible man. I mean, outside of Brian Cody, within the last 15 years, I mean, look at his track record, what he's done within the game, Fitzgibbons, Munster Championship with Waterford, brought us to an All-Ireland final, probably brought an ageing Waterford team to an All-Ireland final, albeit we got hammered by Kilkenny, won the National League with Clare, the All-Ireland, and then to come down here then and win the Leinster Championship. And I think the one key word Brendan used there was trust. He trusts the players and the players trust him, and I think, that was evident when the players went up and, demanded that he come down to Wexford for another season. I think year 3 is the year where, you see the best of Davy Fitzgerald. 2010, we won the Munster Championship. And I suppose the one key thing, they're going to be jumping on that bus Sunday morning or jumping on the train Sunday morning, and they're going to firmly believe that everyone within the squad, everyone within the background team, that they're going to beat Tipperary the weekend, because they trust the system, they trust Davy, they'll keep going to the end. I mean, you look at them this year and they're in every game. Go back to the Dublin game, came with a surge. They were 5-6 points down against Dublin. Came with a surge in the second half. I was doing the radio that day up in Galway. There was only one winner. They outscored Galway in the last 15, 20 minutes of that game. Then, the drawn game down in Wexford against Kilkenny, they were incredible. And then you seen the second half, and he's after instilling a confidence, and it's just gone down through the whole. It's gone down through the whole squad, and I think the supporters now are starting to feed off it now, and they firmly believe that they're well good enough to push on and win Sunday as well.
Billy, do you get? There's been some comparisons made with Liam Griffin and Davy, kind of two maybe eccentric in inverted commas words maybe, but do you get that same sense of belief maybe that was floating around 96 and 97 as well?
Oh, you would. I mean, it's the professionalism he brings with him, and Liam Griffin was probably ahead of his time in that way. He was way ahead, and he had to go outside the county to get different aspects about training, to learn about training, to get inside. I mean, when he brought in the guru, as Liam Dunn called it, we had never seen this before, and all them small things come together that you start to trust the person. And it's like John said, that if you start to trust the person, you start to believe. And certainly I was over in minor team for the last few years down when Davy came first, and he would have been training in the field at Crossruns, and he would have had a serious influence over the minor team because they could hear everything he was saying. And that's the way he is. He's very vocal on the field, but one thing he always does is he backs his players. And it is a delight to see the way he backs them, no matter what happens. And discipline, he would have brought a serious discipline to that Wexford team. I know early on we probably would have been given frees, a lot of frees. I think we played Galway in the Welsh Cup this year. We gave away 15 frees. Joe Canning scored 14 of them. You can't do that sort of a thing. And they've learned that in the last few games, especially in the Leinster final, that discipline is a big thing to go with. And he's definitely brought that. But I think the professionalism he's brought with it has certainly helped. The fact that there's so many people that came behind him as well. I think from day one when he came in, the turnstile started to turn. You didn't have to oil him that much anymore down in Wexford Park to just constantly keep turning. And no matter when he takes the field, I think there was 4,000 at a Welsh Cup final. They're kind of things that didn't happen before. But he does generate that excitement. People want to follow him. Kids just love him, and if your kids love him, they get the mammies and daddies to go as well, and that's what the whole thing is fed into where they are at the minute. Mind you, I was in Tipperary in 2010 when they won the All-Ireland. I had to be in Chalk's pub in Clonmel. It was fairly heavy down there as well, so that is what the game of hurling is about, but we haven't seen it for a long, long time. I will say one thing, that we would have played Tipperary in the league this year, and we would have got a result against them, which we wouldn't have had for a long, long time, and I think that would give our team, give them a bit of confidence going in to play this Tipperary team, who would be very, very well used to Croke Park on big days in Croke Park. So small things like that do help you going in. It'll be a serious challenge for us, but the one thing about it is it's nice to be there. That's certain.
Colin, any particular matchup you're looking forward to? Like people have talked about maybe Cottle Barrett, maybe picking up Rory O'Connor. Is there anything? It is going to be a kind of fascinating tactical battle.
Well, I think the battles to savour are across the Tipperary half-back line. Brendan Maher, he played cornerback. He picked up Aaron Gillan the last day, but Cathal Barrett was missing. So I think the way Limerick approached Tipperary, if we can take that game, the way Limerick approached Tipperary, the physical force of their half-forward line really, really put Tipperary's half-back line. If you take Tipperary's half-back line as a real source of strength, three Mahers, obviously the two Maher brothers, Ronan and Porrick, and then Brendan Maher, who has come back really, really strong after a knee injury. If you take those as really the source of such a platform, and the physical power that Limerick were able to impose that day, really knocked them back. To see Porrick Maher, and Billy mentioned Porrick Maher coming out with the ball, to see him being put on the back foot so often by Kyle Hayes, who's 21 years of age, and he is such a physical specimen. But to be able to do that, and Wexford have a lot of force, obviously, through Lee Chin in that position, and Conor McDonald will come out for puckouts. He won a lot of puckouts the last day. So applying the pressure there and getting a result there is probably pivotal for Wexford. And Lee Chin has really, really picked up this year. We're seeing a lot of leadership from him, even from the point of view of assuming the free-taking duties. Could you really have seen Lee Chin as a free-taker for Wexford over the last 2 years ago even? And, you know, there were wobbles in Galway, but he effectively delivered the equaliser from a free in Wexford Park the night they played Kilkenny. He got most of them, if not all, maybe one drop short at some stage in the Leinster final. And the lads have been talking about belief instilled by Davy Fitzgerald. Well, that's one obvious area, is Lee Chin and his free-taking and his performances, because he did have a dip last year. And I did a piece of him earlier this year in an interview where he actually said that he went to Davy after the Galway game. I found this, and Brendan, and it probably ties in with Brendan's point. He went to Davy after the Galway game last year and said, I'm struggling here with my game and I'm just not feeling right about it. And Davy's solution was to invite him down to his house in 6 Mile Bridge for a couple of days early in the week. Play a game of golf, talk it out, relax and get away from Wexford. And Lee came back up. They played Kilkenny the following Saturday night and he felt much better in himself. And that's probably an example of what Brendan was talking, and that's where he goes that extra mile as a manager. And I think the legacy of that is that he's playing so well this year and he has no problem stepping up to the responsibility. And it's a big responsibility to take frees in that pressurised situation. And to deliver as he has done over the last 2 games is probably the legacy maybe of what happened last year when he went down to 6 Mile Bridge and spent those couple of days there. So that's the relationship he probably has with all those players. I have to say, my estimation for him has gone up. You're talking about him there. My estimation has gone up from this year because I thought maybe he was pushing it out coming back down here. I actually thought he was on the rebound when he came down here first from Clare, because it was only a week later that he ended up, and I thought, you know, surely he'll look for a break. But he's been involved in inter-county hurling every year of his life since he was a minor, and he just cannot get away from it. And even coming down here, 3-hour journey maybe across the country, there's no motorway serving Clare to Wexford. And you think of that journey and that journey back, and I know he's got travelling companions with him, but that takes a lot of commitment, and that really goes beyond for a manager.
Just take a couple of quick questions from the audience there. One for you, Billy. An interesting one. Billy has been known to have very good style, but who does he model his moustache on? Tom Selleck, no?
George O'Connor. One of your own.
Ursula, sorry now, and we talked off air about how we weren't going to bring this question up, but it's the next question in front of me here. It's just about Wexford Camogie. Can Wexford Camogie ever get back to the good old days? I have to bring up first that you pulled a bit of a stunt there. The Offaly game in the Camogie was called off twice due to food poisoning or water poisoning or something like that. But what is the situation at the moment, and can Wexford get back to the good times?
Well, unfortunately, we're facing a relegation final next Wednesday against Meath, so they've that battle first of all. And look, to me, it would be an awful pity to see Meath or Wexford, but from my own point of view, seeing Wexford down at intermediate level next year. You know, it's only 7 years since we won our last All-Ireland, and Wexford's a proud, you know, hurling county, Camogie county, and we've great players within the county, and I just think it's a rebuilding process at the moment, and getting all the factors right, getting the right players in, the right management structure and county board. And look, unfortunately, it was always going to happen when the core group of us retired after maybe the 3 in a row. There was always going to be a dip, but I suppose maybe none of us expected what has kind of unfolded this year, and we're making the headlines for the wrong reasons, unfortunately. But look, knowing Wexford and knowing what's there and the talent that there is coming through, we have a good minor team at the moment, and if we can build on that group of players, and the senior championship in Wexford at the moment is probably stronger than ever. So I think if we can get the right players, good management structure in place, we can hopefully pick it up next year.
Sorry for landing in it.
No.
Just a quick verdict on the game, Brendan. Who do you think will win, and by how much? And get your machetes and things ready for his answer.
Saying Wexford by 10 points might work. No, I just think that if I'm in that Tipperary dressing room before I go out, the first thing I want to do is I want to take the fizz out of the crowd. I want to keep possession of the ball. I want to try to get a goal early, and I want Wexford people thinking, oh no, here we go again. right? And if Tipperary, I think, can use the ball a lot better. Tip have played around teams and over teams since they lost their mojo against Limerick and got pushed back. It really dented the confidence. But if Tip can play the ball, I think, through the lines properly, get Bubbles into the game and get Bubbles into the game as early as we can and get him going, I just think the experience Tip have down the home straight should just be enough to get us over the line.
Colm?
Just checking, is there a back door here? Michael. My concern for Wexford would be at this level, at this stage of the competition, is goals. I think they need to be scoring more goals, perhaps. I think there's goals in Tipperary. I know Wexford have been very good at preventing them. There's also hurt in Tipperary after the, not just the defeat, but the scale of the defeat in the Munster final. And I know they obviously picked up and went against Laois, but there has to be lingering hurt there for these Tipperary players. For some of them, not all of them, they're coming towards the twilight of their career. Obviously, there's a few years left, but the opportunities will be limited. It's a very, very competitive field there. Seamus Callanan has scored a goal in every championship game he has played this year. And as I said, Wexford have been very, very good at being able to smother goal opportunities and smother goal chances. But I just feel that there may be just a little deficit there, that Tipperary might score a couple of goals. Maybe Wexford won't score one. I know Galway went and won an All-Ireland title in 2017, not scoring a goal in their last 4 games, 300 minutes. But I just think it could be a critical factor. I believe Wexford will perform. The idea that they'd be overawed by the occasion, well, I'd suggest a Leinster final against Kilkenny is as big an occasion as a Wexford hurler can probably get. So from that point of view, but I just feel that the goal deficit, the goal advantage is with Tipperary, and it may count on Sunday.
Billy?
Yeah, I'm hardly going to agree with the two boys, but what I will say, like we've talked about Davy for 10 or 15 minutes. On the other side, you have a manager that knows what it's about as regards winning All Ireland as well, in Liam Sheedy, and he will have done his homework on Wexford. I know the boys will say there's a lot of hurt in Tipperary, which there is, and naturally, but hurt is one thing, hunger is another thing. Wexford have a serious hunger, and if they bring that to Croke Park for the first 20 minutes and stop Tipperary, because Tipperary will come out to blow us out of the water. You have to stop them getting their goals. I think they've done that very well. But if Tipperary get going, we could be in trouble. But I think the hunger that Wexford have, and I know they haven't got the experience, but that big day in Croke Park, we have a minor team playing before them. It'll add something else to the whole occasion. And I would go for Wexford on the belief that that day in Wexford Park a few months ago will have given them that bit of confidence to say, yeah, Tipperary have always had the upper hand on us, but maybe it's changed and we can take it from there.
Ursula? Go on, Billy.
Look, without a doubt, I think Wexford's performance would have to be up on their Leinster final performance, but I just believe that Wexford have good momentum going into the game. There is that confidence and belief, and also one thing this year, any of the games that Wexford have went behind, whether it was against Galway, Dublin, Kilkenny and Wexford Park, we've always seemed to manage to claw it back. We keep fighting, we keep working to the end. And one key thing, I think, Aidan Nolan's availability, I think that's going to be key for Wexford, that we have a couple of options in the bench. Damien Reck is back fit, and someone like Aidan Nolan coming on maybe for 10-15 minutes, adding that physical presence around the middle third, and I think that could prove crucial for Wexford.
I thought you might have the casting vote, John.
Yeah, I suppose up the last Tuesday, I was leaning towards Wexford, but I think the fact that Tuesday night Tipperary winning and the manner in which they won, I think they're going to get a big kick out of that. I think if you're Liam Sheedy after coming out of Thurles Tuesday night, you must be scratching your head saying, well, some of these players aren't even on the Tipperary panel. Going through your man Brian O'Mara, number 7, serious hurler, Cadell, Conor Bowe, Morgan, the corner back. These lads have bundles of energy, and what Tipperary need now, whether he'll bring them in to the panel for Sunday. But if I was Liam Sheedy, I would be injecting some of them lads into their team, and I think it might give them a bit more energy. But I think the one key thing that Colm said there was goals. I think if Wexford, and I said it to Ursula before, if Wexford can nullify Tipperary to a minimum of 2 or under goals, I would give Wexford a great chance. But I think if Tipperary score anything above 2 goals, it's going to be an uphill battle for Wexford. I think the key battles are going to be Rory O'Connor, Cathal Barrett. I can't wait for that battle. I'd agree with Billy. I think they have the best man full back to go toe-to-toe with Seamus Callan, and he's made of tough stuff, and he won't fear Seamus Callan. If he can contain him, I think they have a great chance, because Bubbles and John McGrath are not in the best of form at the moment, but that's the worry I have, that one of them 2 lads could potentially explode. Then you have Dee O'Keefe in the middle of the park. And I think from a Wexford point of view, I think you've seen at the Leinster final, the trio of Rory O'Connor, MacDonald and Lee Chin, those 3, if those 3 play well again for Wexford, I think the rest of them will row in behind it. And again, I think the crowd are going to play a massive part. I think we could have anything up to 45,000 roaring Wexicans, as I like to call them. It's bound to have a massive bear, and it's going to be worth a couple of scores. But I just think with the bit of experience the Tipperary have coming down the home straight, I think Sheedy, he has that bit between his teeth. He's going to have something to go at his players at and say, well, look, everyone is writing you off. And I think that's when Tipperary are at their most dangerous, is when everyone's writing them off and everyone else is building up another team. I think it was perfectly set up for Wexford going into the Leinster final. Everyone was saying that Kilkenny would beat Wexford. Look, my heart says Wexford. I would love to see Wexford reach the All-Ireland final, but my head is telling me Tipperary.
Okay, just a quick question from someone in the crowd here. Brendan Hobbs, actually, from the crowd, each member of the panel. So just want a name here. Who is the worst trainer you have played with? And in brackets, he said, it must be an excellent, well-known hurler. Brendan?
Easy, Conor O'Mahony. Wouldn't run to save his life, warms up naughty, but on an extra layer of clothes. In a match, though, different gravy, but he wouldn't train now. Conor O'Mahony.
Billy?
I'd have to say, for to get out of training and find some sort of... Tom Dempsey wasn't too bad at it, to be honest with you.
Ursula?
Oh, God. Maybe my clubmate Una Lacey at times, between injuries and whatever, but that's maybe a bit harsh too, but I can't think.
John?
I'd say Flynn. Flynn was a genius, a character, but he's the type of lad, he could sit in his hurley and still bang in 3 goals. And you're just saying to yourself, if he pushed himself even more, he could be like Christy Ring of all time, like, you know?
Yeah. Brilliant. Boys, we just look and ladies, we just look at the other semi-final, obviously Saturday evening, and looking at Kilkenny and Limerick. Brendan, you've obviously come up against Brian Cody countless times down through the years. Is this one of his best achievements, to be getting what he is getting out of the current Kilkenny crowd?
Yeah, it's amazing with Kilkenny, looking at him. You have to be 6 points better than to beat him by 1. And just watching him against Cork, it's no matter who puts on that bloody jersey. Cork were 7-8 points better than them at half-time. And you go in and you're only 2 points up. And we discussed that with Tipperary before we played him. He said, you're going to be killing these lads, but don't expect to be miles ahead at half-time. And that's what happened in the 10 final. And we said, we knew we'd be exactly here. We are all over these lads. It should be 10 points. It's only 2. And we just keep the head and keep going. I think that's what happened to Cork. And that's the genius of Brian Cody, the way he treats the players. Again, on the outside looking in, it looks like he's hard. He's breaking their back every night and all that. But yet, though, the players respond. And even the last day with his half-back line, that change he made at half-time, putting Fogarty at wing-back, Joey Holden at centre-back, and Man Morrissey on the other wing, that changed the whole game, because when their half-back line stayed, the Cork full forward line didn't get as much ball in. So they talk about Brian Cody this, Brian Cody that, about tactics and all that, but he spotted that, tightened that up. So, look, he'll infuse them with an absolute dogged determination. It's exactly where they'll want to be as well, that Limerick are coming in, lads are only coming along here to get a hide, and sure, look, we'll play another game of hurling anyway and see what happens. Do you know what I mean? It'll be grand, sure, we'll all shake hands afterwards, but trust me, they will give Limerick pucks, but I still think Limerick will have too much for them.
Where do you think Kilkenny are at the moment, Colin?
I thought when they won the league final last year, it ranked right up there with among Brian Cody's best achievements, because obviously they're in a real transitional period now in terms of personnel. For years, it was so difficult to break into the Kilkenny team. Richie Hogan and TJ Reid had to wait. Some of the most talented players of this century, we'll say, and they had to wait 2-3 seasons before they actually nailed down a place. And if you remember the 2008 All-Ireland final, John, you mightn't want to remember it too much, but the Kilkenny team that day, and they were winning so well, and they only introduced 2 substitutes. I always think back to that, and that was Brian Cody saying, you will earn your appearance. You will earn your appearance in an All-Ireland final. I was just looking at something earlier today. Since the 2016 All-Ireland defeat to Tipperary, Brian Cody has introduced for championship debuts 21 players. Now, that would be unheard of. Obviously, they're a very settled team, a team that was winning regularly. And you have a guy like Adrian Mullen, who's still under 20, and at the first available opportunity, he's into the team. So it just shows you Kilkenny are obviously at a different level with the players that they have than they were in the years when Richie Hogan and TJ Reid weren't straight into the team as 19 and 20-year-olds. Adrian Mullen in the exact same situation. He's in straight away against Dublin in this year's championship. So it's a very different landscape from Kilkenny. And against that background, I think they've done very well, obviously, to recover from the Leinster final defeat and beat Cork as they did. Having said that, I was so impressed with Limerick in the Munster final. Just their power, their athleticism, the way they're playing the game, the precision of their passing. They just seem like a team. They just look like a team that has moved on to another level. And I think that middle 8 are so strong for them. Half-back line, half-forward line, and Cian Lynch looks to be coming back now on the basis of the Munster final to some really strong form. And I think a team that won the league, has the Munster Championship now, and our All-Ireland has all the titles, the Treaty Slam. I think they just have the bit between their teeth and are a step above Kilkenny, and I think they'll show that on Saturday.
Billy, what do you make of Limerick over the last, say, 18 months? Probably, I don't think any team in recent years has dealt with it, and a breakthrough All-Ireland win, maybe as well as they have. It's a big deal, but this seems to be kind of a different group of Limerick players.
I think a lot has to do with what they put into underage in the last 8 to 10 years, really, and that's what's brought them to a new level. What they've done at, say, university down there, and Davy was part of that as well, is really, and I've gone to a few Fitzgibbon Cup matches over the last 2 years, and it is where the serious hurling is. That's where these guys come out, and they don't fear anyone. The only thing I will say is that the layoff they've had since the Munster final, the one team you don't need to have a layoff coming into play again is Kilkenny. Because any weakness you have, they will find it. And they, bringing Richie Hogan back, I think he scored 1-3, bringing in Walter Welch at the right time sort of re-energised him as well, and I would give Kilkenny a serious chance against Kilkenny again Limerick on Saturday evening. Everyone will say Limerick, but I think the layoff might be just too much coming into play a Kilkenny team.
Ursula, Kilkenny have had loads of injuries throughout the year. Owen Murphy, James Maher, different lads. But this is probably the first time where they've nearly got everybody ready to go from the start, I'd say.
Yeah, and that's going to be crucial for Kilkenny because, as Billy said, the impact that the 3 Kilkenny subs that came on, Walter Walsh 3 points, Billy Ryan, Bill Sheehan, they all contributed. But key for Kilkenny to me, Richie Hogan back on form, Owen Murphy steadied the ship, in goal. And Kilkenny will look back to that quarter-final last year in Thurles. They only lost by a point. They were right in it. Walter Walsh was missing that day. They had numerous wides, and Kilkenny will take confidence from that right up to the last couple of minutes in that game. They were in it, and to me, crucial for Limerick is that half-forward line. Like in that game last year against Kilkenny, they scored 10 points, and to me, those 3 players, Tom Morrissey, Kyle Hayes, Grode, Hegarty, that's where Limerick are going to, start their attack, but also those guys are well able to track back and help out in defence as well, and that's where Kilkenny will have to really, keep the ball away from Limerick.
Fascinating clash, John, because they probably play 2 quite similar styles. Half forwards, very deep, massive work rate, loads of bodies in around the middle. What are you expecting? Yeah,
they're going to 100% mirror each other, but I mean, you go back to a fortnight ago, we were up in Kilkenny, and there was a question posed to me, do you think it's time for Brian Cody to go? I mean, you weren't long getting your answer then that Sunday when they demolished Cork in the second half. And I'm with Billy, ride him off with your pearl. I think, when you ride them off and everyone believes that, it's their time is up, that's when they come and with the sting in their tail again. And I just firmly believe that if Limerick don't operate to the same levels as the Munster final, Kilkenny are well equipped to go and take them down. And I just believe that it's going to be a very, very close game, a bit like the Wexford Tipperary game. I think they have the personnel to go and trouble Limerick. I mean, you look at TJ Reid. I mean, that's going to pose a massive question mark for John Kiley. What does he do with TJ Reid? I mean, Declan Hannon likes to sit in front of the D. We've seen it with Cork the last day. They got Stevie MacDonald to man-mark TJ Reid. So if Declan Hannon doesn't go and follow TJ Reid, who's going to pick him up? Another fascinating one, will Pádraig Welch go in on Galan? I think Killian Buckley will probably start as well. Will Brian Cody start Walter Welch? I think he has to start Walter Welch. But you go through all the players that they have: Richie Latty, Adrian Mullen, Richie Hogan, Colin Fennelly, TJ Reid. They've experienced. They keep going to the end. And you've seen it last year. It took Limerick 73, 74 minutes to put them away. And if they're not out of the pitch of it, as we've seen against Cork, Cork turned them over. If Cork were playing Limerick the weekend, I mean, everyone would be saying Cork would have a fantastic chance. So there's no reason why Kilkenny can't go and get the job done. And there's a part of me, as much as I'd love to see Wexford win the All-Ireland, there's a big part of me would love to see Cody pull it off and then probably set into the sunset and said, well, you know what, I can't give any more. I think it will be the greatest achievement of all of within the GA within recent years if he was to go and pull it off after the Leinster final defeat. I mean, let's be honest with it, they were 12-1 the morning of the Cork game. And I mean, if they were to go and beat Cork, beat Limerick, and then, push on and win an All-Ireland. And you never know, like, I mean, the permutations, I mean, we could have a Limerick-Wexford final, we could have a repeat of 96, we could have a repeat of the Munster final, as I said to you, Limerick and Kilkenny. And, it could be written in the stars where we could have Cody versus Sheedy, part 3, and Cody comes and, comes back and, gets revenge for
5 in a row.
5 in a row. So, write him off Joe Pearl, but I think, look, if Limerick performed the way they played in the Munster final, they'll win the game. But if they're any way below it, Kilkenny can most certainly take them down, yeah.
Billy, everyone talks about Limerick's bench and the impact off the bench. You're probably one of the most renowned, apart from Seamus Darby, influences off the bench. What's that like, and what's the mentality like of maybe knowing that when you come in you have to make an impact and even getting yourself in that frame of mind?
I think the frame of mind is everything. If you're a sub on a team and you have a chip on your shoulder, wondering why you weren't on the team, you're not going to make the impact that you need to make with the other 14 guys. And that's what I'd say. Davy and say Liam Griffin would talk to their subs to know exactly what they want them to do. To know if them subs are capable of doing it because of their mental aspect of it. And if a sub wants to be a sub and wants to get a run, he'll do his business. He'll know what's asked him for the 10, 15, 20 minutes. That's what makes Cody so good. There's not too often Brian Cody brings in a guy that won't perform. They know exactly their place. They're number 20, number 21, but you have a job to do for 10 minutes. And that is the difference between having a happy camp and a camp that are not really pulling with you. You'll always get 15 guys to pull with you. As to getting the other 20, whoever's involved in the panel, them names that really are going to make so much difference, them 10 names, if they're pulling with you as well, then you have a team. You have a team, you have a panel, everything is falling into place. But if you have one or two of that group that are not particularly happy at sitting on the bench, they will cause problems for you because they lead into the other 8 or 9 that are there, and that's where your problems start as a team. So I will say Davy, and I'd say Brian Cody would be much the same. If they have someone in the panel that's a negative influence sitting on the bench, he won't be sitting on the bench for too long. And that's why subs being brought in always have a positive, even the likes of, as Ursula was saying, the likes of Aidan Nolan, like any of the subs that Davy has brought in have done what's asked to do, back out on the bench and get ready for it, and the same with Cody. And in fairness, like Limerick have been doing that, they have 15 subs that could possibly be beyond on any starting 15, but it's keeping those people happy. That's the big thing for managers to get right, and certainly Brian Cody has done it over the years, and whoever he brings in on Saturday evening will produce something for him, and that could be the turning game of it. So as a weekend to look forward to, as a Wexford man, and having two teams in Croke Park that don't happen too often in All-Ireland semi-final. I've been at every All-Ireland semi-final for the last 20 years, hoping that Wexford will be in it. The hope is over. We're up there now and we'll go up and enjoy.
You just get a verdict from me all there, Brendan. Who do you think, and in a sentence, why?
I just think that Limerick won't be caught, because I know they have the long layoff and I know Kilkenny are capable of and all, but I just think the Limerick system and the infusion of energy that they'll get from the bench when Dowling and all these lads come on will be enough to get them across the line.
Colin?
Yeah, I'd go with that too. Interesting to hear the discussion about substitutes. They no longer see themselves or are referenced or finishers now. Yeah. That's modern terminology within a team. They've changed the concept of a sub, and you're now a finisher. And to use that phrase, Limerick have a lot of good finishers and a lot of good substitutes to bring in. Very, very strong bench, obviously. But I just thought the power of their performance blew Tipperary away the last day. Do they even need to go that level? Well, obviously they need to go to a certain level to beat Kilkenny, but I think there's even more in Limerick. I think, as I said earlier, they really have the bit between the teeth, that powerful middle eight that they have. I think William O'Donoghue has even improved them from last year. Peter Casey has probably improved it from Seamus Flanagan in terms of his goal. The goal he got in the Munster final between himself and Aaron Gillan, and just that chemistry that's there and the quality of the finish. So he's brought that too. So I feel they're at the right stage of development at the moment to push on and get into another All-Ireland final.
Billy, who will Wexford be playing in the All-Ireland final?
Funny enough, I met Ned Quinn coming out of the under-20 game there last week, and when things are not going well for Kilkenny, there's never a smile on Ned's face. But he's coming out and there was a serious smile, and he says, look, we'll see you in the senior All-Ireland. So I'll go with Kilkenny.
Ursula?
I think Kilkenny will be delighted going in with the underdogs tag, and I think the further Kilkenny are in this championship and the fact that they're back in Croke Park and at this All-Ireland semi-final stage, I'd give them an outside chance.
John?
I suppose, look, we can't forget last year the two semi-finals went to extra time, and I just have a funny feeling the weekend that one of the two semi-finals is going to go to extra time. And I wouldn't rule out Limerick and Kilkenny having to go a full 90-odd minutes the weekend. But I just think Limerick, I think if it comes down to having the bench, I think, if it means 5 players finishing out the game, we've seen the impact that they have. I think I'd fancy Limerick to win Saturday night, yeah.
Brilliant. Just a couple of quick rapid-fire questions. One for you, Brendan, here. What's the most important save you ever made?
Most important save. Kevin Broderick in the All-Ireland final in 2001. He came through one-on-one. We had just gotten a goal, I think, from Mark O'Leary at the time. And Kevin Broderick was the golden boy of Galway hurling, will say. He was doing everything right and all. And I just got out to him as he was throwing it up. And that's probably the one, because I think if Galway got a goal at that stage, the game would have made it an awful lot harder for us to get across the line. So probably that Broderick one, yeah.
What's your biggest clanger?
Which one? Biggest clanger, Galway in 2003. We were playing Galway up in Salt Hill. We were playing against the wind. And it was around the time we had Tommy Dunn playing centre-back. And we were winning by 5 or 6 points. The game was being seen out. I think it was a 65 come in. Of course, did the usual goalie thing, my ball. And next thing, straight through my hand, and all hell broke loose then. Galway suddenly had a chance of winning the match. We went from going cruising home to Brendan making it interesting. So I'd say that would be the one. And to have Tommy Dunn that close to you when you drop a clanger isn't pretty, I swear to God. It's much easier without midfield giving you the stare than when you can hear the actual vocals that come with the stare. When he's 5 yards away from you, you told him, leave it off, I have it. Anyway, yeah, that's the one.
Just one for you, Billy, here. I don't know if you still have the togs, but someone is wondering, can Billy Byrne come back for Wexford this Sunday? Remember 97 Leinster final?
Well, sometimes you forget, but that's one you wouldn't forget. It was 97. I remember playing Tipperary in the All-Ireland semi-final, and they're talking about sweeper systems and everything, but I wouldn't have rated myself brilliant or anything. When I come in full forward about 10 minutes ago. Tipperary actually brought back 2 sweepers. So
just a quick one for you there, John. Have you any ambitions to become a manager, or would you be afraid that it would affect you in the same way it affects Davy Fitz?
No, no interest in inter-county management. One sure thing I don't do stress, and I think the stress of inter-county management now just wouldn't sit well with me, you know.
Lads, that's brilliant. That's all we have time for, I'm afraid, folks, on this special live episode of the Throw-In Podcast in association with Bord Gáis Energy. Huge thanks to Brendan Cummins, Colm Keys, Billy Byrne, Ursula Jacob and John Milan. And thanks to all of you for joining us here tonight in the Ashdown Park Hotel, and to everybody who joined us on Facebook Live. We'll be back on Monday again for another episode of the Throw-In Podcast, and the very best of luck to 4 teams involved, and obviously up Wexford.
Bord Gáis Energy, putting customers at the core of under-20 and senior hurling championship action. #hurling to the core.